Welcome to the deep dive. We are so glad you're here with us today because our whole mission with this show is to take a really specific source,
Yeah.
and pull out those fascinating aha moments that leave you both informed and hopefully a little entertained.
Yeah, exactly. And today's source is a really fun one.
It is. We're looking at a blog post from a site called Notes-on-Fishkeeping. This is part 295, written by someone named Ang, and it was published on July 23, 2026.
Right. And the setup for this post is just, well, something I think anyone listening can probably relate to, especially if you own a home or have some kind of complex hobby.
Oh, for sure. So Ang is basically out running errands, right? Doing routine house maintenance, walking down the industrial aisles of a big box hardware store because things in a house constantly break and you just find yourself staring at these endless racks of generic replacement parts.
Yeah, the classic weekend hardware store run.
All right. And Ang spots this standard T8 LED batten light, just a totally off-the-shelf generic household fixture, about $15. And they ask this dangerously simple question. Is this suitable for an aquarium?
Oh, man. It is like the ultimate siren song for anyone who likes to DIY.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think before we get into the science of why this is actually a terrible idea, we have to talk about the allure of that shortcut.
Yeah, we have to understand the temptation.
Because it's this universal urge, right? You want to use a generic everyday item to save money in a highly specialized hobby. Like, okay, imagine you're putting together flat pack furniture.
Oh, I've been there.
Right. And you realize you need a flathead screwdriver. But you were just way too lazy to walk out to the garage to get it. So you look at the screw, and then you look at a butter knife sitting in the kitchen drawer, and you think, you know what? The shape is close enough. I can make this work.
Yeah, you just want to beat the system. And the thing is, Ang's blog post points out that this hope isn't, entirely baseless.
Oh, really? It actually works.
Yeah. Well, historically, yeah. Ang notes that, in their own words, many moons ago, they actually successfully used older T8 LED lights as the main light source for more than 25 aquarium tanks.
25 tanks. That's a massive setup.
It's huge. And that historical context is really crucial here. Because in the early days of LED tech, or with those older fluorescent T8s, you could sort of brute force your way into keeping aquatic plants alive just by leaving them on for an incredibly long time.
Oh, I see. Which totally explains the only downside Ang noted about that old setup, which was these massive electricity bills.
Exactly. But here's the catch. The manufacturing specs of today's generic household LEDs are entirely different beasts. So relying on a hardware store light today is just a deeply flawed idea.
Right.
To borrow your analogy, the butter knife might turn the screw once or twice, but eventually you're going to strip the screw completely, or worse, you slip and cut your hand.
That brings us perfectly to the first big issue, which is the immediate physical danger.
Yeah. Safety first.
Right, because the first reason to reject this $15 shortcut has absolutely nothing to do with biology or plants or the fish themselves. It's about the harsh reality of the physical environment.
Which is something a lot of people overlook.
Definitely. So the generic LED batten light that Ang found carries what's called an IP20 rating.
Right, IP. So IP stands for Ingress Protection. It's this international standard that defines how well an electrical enclosure seals against foreign bodies and moisture.
Like dirt and water.
Exactly. So the first digit is for solid objects, and the second digit is for liquids.
Okay, I've actually seen these ratings on outdoor gear and smartphones and stuff.
Yeah, they're everywhere now.
So an IP20 rating, the 2, means it's protected against solid objects larger than, I think, 12.5 millimeters. Basically, it's fingerproof, so you don't accidentally touch live wire and shock yourself.
Spot on. That covers the solid protection. But that second number, the 0, that is the liquid rating, meaning this fixture provides absolutely zero protection against water, moisture, or splashes.
Okay, wait, hold on. Common sense pushback here.
Let's hear it.
If IP20 means literal zero liquid protection, why are hardware stores selling this for residential homes? Think about a normal house. You've got bathrooms that turn into literal steam rooms after a long hot shower.
Yeah, that's true.
Or kitchens, filling with steam when you boil a massive pot of pasta. If a house has those humid environments, why is an IP20 light legally allowed on a residential ceiling?
That's a great question. But it comes down to the fact that a house's humidity is temporary and it's heavily mitigated.
Mitigated how?
Well, a bathroom or a kitchen might get humid for, 30 minutes? Plus, standard fixtures are mounted high up on ceilings, far away from any direct splashes, and residential building codes usually mandate active ventilation.
Oh, right, like exhaust fans.
Exactly. Exhaust fans, Windows things designed to clear that moisture out rapidly. The ambient temporary moisture in your bathroom is absolutely nothing compared to the permanent aggressive microclimate of an aquarium.
The microclimate, that's a great word for it,
Hmm.
because the tank is basically its own enclosed, highly volatile weather system.
Right. Just think about the physics in a running aquarium. You have a heated body of water that is constantly evaporating, that creates this localized zone of permanent high humidity right at the surface of the water.
Which is exactly where the light sits.
Precisely. You have continuous condensation building up on the underside of the hood and on the light fixture itself, 247.
Not to mention the aggressive splashing, right? I mean, you have filters churning the surface, air stones popping bubbles all day, fish jumping.
Yeah, and Eng specifically points out the human element too. Water changes.
Oh, yeah.
When you are siphoning gallons of water in and out of a glass box every single week, splashing is completely inevitable. You can't avoid it.
So if you take an IP20 light, a device with literally zero defense against liquids, and you mount it an inch above a churning, splashing body of water, you are basically engineering a disaster.
You're inviting short circuits, rapid corrosion of the diodes, total light failure, or honestly, a severe electrical shock to the water and to yourself.
Wow. So what rating do you actually need?
For a marine or freshwater aquarium, the baseline engineering requirement is an IP65 or an IP67 rating.
Okay, so IP65 meaning it can withstand low-pressure water jets from any direction, and IP67 meaning it can survive temporary full submersion in water if you drop it in the tank, basically.
Exactly. That is the level of intense sealing you absolutely need when you mix high voltage and water in a confined space. Using an IP20 light above a tank is, well, it's actively electrifying your butter knife.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
So from a purely safety-oriented perspective, the hardware store hack is a spectacular failure.
A total failure, yeah.
But let's play devil's advocate for a second. Let's run a hypothetical. Let's say we magically waterproof this generic T8 LED. We slather the whole circuit board in aquarium-safe silicone, perfectly seal the housing, and completely bypass the electrical hazard.
Okay, I play along.
If the light is physically safe, your tank is still doomed, because making it physically safe doesn't change the actual beam of light coming out of the bulb.
Right. And this is where we get into the biology. The blog post notes this hardware light features a 6,500K daylight color temperature.
Right, 6,500 Kelvin, that's the color temperature that gives off that really crisp, bright bluish-white light.
Yeah, 6,500K is specifically engineered to perfectly mimic the visual aesthetic of midday sunlight. And Eng even acknowledges that, technically speaking, a 6,500K color temp is widely considered suitable for freshwater aquariums and low-light plants.
Okay, another pushback here then. Because if this 6,500K hardware LED exactly mimics the look of the midday sun to my human eyes, why doesn't it mimic the sun for the aquatic plants? Bright is bright, right? If it looks like the sun, the plant should treat it like the sun.
And that assumption right there is the exact trap that kills thousands of aquarium ecosystems every year.
Really?
Yeah, it is the illusion of brightness. We have to separate human vision from biological fuel. The household LED from the hardware store is engineered specifically and exclusively for the human eye. And human vision registers brightness in units called lumens.
Right, lumens. You see that advertised on literally every single box of light bulbs at the store. The higher the lumens, the brighter the room.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Our eyes do not perceive all colors of light equally. Evolutionary biology has made the human eye incredibly sensitive to the green and yellow parts of the light spectrum.
Okay, so green and yellow look brightest to us.
Yes. So, to get a massive lumen rating as cheaply as possible, manufacturers simply pump their generic LEDs full of green and yellow light wavelengths. It totally tricks our eyes into perceiving the room as incredibly bright, crisp, and well illuminated.
But the plants,
Yeah.
they aren't looking at the tank. They are trying to eat the light.
That's a perfect way to put it. Aquatic life does not care about lumens at all. They require PAR, which stands for Photosynthetically Active Radiation.
Photosynthetically active radiation. That's a mouthful.
It is, yeah. But basically, this is the specific spectral waveband of solar radiation that photosynthetic organisms use to physically fuel photosynthesis. You can walk into a room, look at a tank lit by a cheap generic LED, and think, wow, that looks brilliantly bright. But the plants inside are literally starving to death.
Because chlorophyll, which is the pigment in the plants,
Yeah.
fundamentally rejects green light. I mean, that's basic biology, right?
Hmm.
Leaves appear green to us precisely because they do not absorb green wavelengths. They bounce that green light back into our eyes.
Exactly. So when you buy a high-lumen generic LED, you are blasting the plants with the exact wavelength of light they physically cannot consume. It is the equivalent of serving a massive, beautiful plate of plastic fruit.
Plastic fruit, I love that.
Yeah, it looks vibrant and bright, but it provides zero nutritional value.
It's like listening to a piece of music. Imagine you are listening to this complex, richly layered song.
Yeah.
But you go to your stereo equalizer and you completely cut out the bass.
Yeah.
And you completely cut out the treble.
Okay, yeah.
Then you take the mid-range, which would be the green and yellow light in this analogy, and you just crank the volume up to maximum.
It would be deafeningly loud.
Deafening. You could hear the noise perfectly, which represents the lumens, the brightness, but because you gutted the highs and the lows, you lose the depth, the emotion, and the actual function of the music. It just becomes flat, chaotic noise.
That is a great analogy, and that is exactly what a plant experiences under a household LED. It is bombarded with visual noise, but it's missing the bass and the treble that it actually needs to survive.
Right. And in the context of PAR, what exactly are the bass and the treble?
They are the deep reds and the strong blues. A generic LED utterly lacks this full spectrum RGB output. Red and blue light are the primary biological drivers that excite the electrons in a plant's cells, allowing it to convert carbon dioxide and water into oxygen and glucose.
So without deep reds and strong blues, photosynthesis just grinds to a halt.
It completely shuts down.
But we need to look even closer here, because the blog post mentions that this isn't just about the leafy green decorative plants you buy at the pet store. Ang specifically mentions cyanobacteria and algae.
Yes.
And we really have to talk about the microecosystem, because this is where the hardware store hack turns incredibly destructive.
Yeah, this is the hidden danger. When most people set up a tank, they only focus on the macro life, the fish, the snails, the big plants. But an aquarium is a fragile, closed-loop biological engine.
It's an entire world in a box.
Exactly. And cyanobacteria, for example, are microscopic organisms. They are literally some of the oldest living things on planet Earth, and they form the invisible foundation of the tank's environment.
They're basically the waste management infrastructure.
That's exactly what they are. They are heavily involved in the nitrogen cycle. So your fish eat food, and they produce waste, primarily ammonia, which is highly toxic.
Fish poop, basically.
Right, fish poop. In a healthy tank, microscopic bacteria and photosynthetic organisms like cyanobacteria process that toxic ammonia into nitrites and then into less harmful nitrates. But those microscopic organisms absolutely depend on the specific red and blue wave bands of PAR to function and multiply.
Oh, wow. So if you stick an IP20 high-lumen green-heavy LED over the tank, you aren't just starving the pretty ferns.
Yeah.
You are systematically shutting down the microscopic waste management system.
You're crashing the whole system. The cyanobacteria starve and die off. The nitrogen cycle crashes. The ammonia from the fish waste has nowhere to go, so it just spikes, turning the water highly toxic.
So the fish are essentially swimming in poison.
Yeah, and they become deeply stressed, their immune systems plummet, and the entire ecosystem just collapses. And all because the light bulb was optimized for a human kitchen instead of biological photosynthesis.
It is genuinely terrifying how a $15 light bulb can quietly poison a 100-gallon tank just by lacking a few invisible wavelengths of light.
It really is.
But the tragedy of this shortcut isn't just biological. It's aesthetic, too. Ang points out something really crucial at the end of their post. You don't just build an aquarium to run a biology experiment, right? You build it to look at it.
Exactly. And without the full RGB spectrum again, specifically those reds and blues, the natural colors of the fish fail to shine naturally.
Now, this requires a bit of physics to understand, I think. Because if my tank is blindingly bright with those 6500K lumens we talked about, why wouldn't a vibrant red betta fish or a neon tetra look colorful?
It's because of how biological structural color works. An object can only appear a certain color to your eye if that specific color's wavelength is present in the light source shining on it.
Oh, right. Because we only see what's reflected.
Right. And fish don't just have flat pigment like a painted wall. Many aquatic species, like neon tetras, utilize specialized cells called iridophores.
Iridophores. Are those what make them look like they are glowing with those brilliant blue and red stripes?
Yes, exactly. But they aren't actually generating their own light. Those iridophores contain microscopic crystal structures that physically bend and reflect specific wavelengths of light, primarily blues and reds, back at the viewer. It's structural iridescence.
Wait, microscopic crystals in their scales. That is so cool.
It's amazing biology.
But so, if I shine a generic hardware store LED on a neon tetra, a light that has been entirely stripped of its deep reds and rich blues just to maximize those green and yellow lumens, what happens?
Well, there is literally no blue or red light in the tank for the fish's specialized scales to reflect. The mechanism of their iridescence is starved of its source material.
Wow, so you spend hundreds of dollars setting up this stunning aquatic landscape. You stock it with gorgeous, highly colorful fish, and because you use the butter knife light, they look completely washed out, just dull, gray, and flat.
Yeah, it's a huge letdown. You are viewing complex biological pigments under a light designed to illuminate text on a cardboard box in a warehouse. Or, to make a linoleum kitchen floor look clean. It was never engineered to render the iridescence of aquatic life. The fish literally cannot shine.
It is amazing how much invisible complexity is hidden inside a single, seemingly simple beam of light. We just flip a switch on the wall and expect the universe to work, but there is a profound physics and biology lesson happening every single second.
Every second, yeah.
So let's pull all of this together. We started with a wildly relatable scenario, wandering the aisles of a hardware store, looking at a generic T8 LED, and wondering if we could just hack a specialized hobby.
And we uncovered that this simple shortcut opens up a massive intersection of electrical engineering and biology.
Right. On the physical front, an IP20 rating means literal zero liquid protection. In the highly humid, splash-heavy, permanent microclimate of a fish tank, an IP20 fixture is a literal recipe for short circuits and electrical shock. The standard is IP65 or IP67 for a reason.
Absolutely. And even if you miraculously bypass the danger of mixing water and electricity, you run headfirst into a biological wall. We broke down the massive gulf between lumens, which is visual brightness, manufactured strictly to trick the human eye using green and yellow wavelengths, and PAR.
Photosynthetically active radiation.
Right, which is the invisible biological fuel that aquatic life actually requires to live.
Because without the full RGB spectrum specifically, the deep reds and blues required to excite chlorophyll and fuel the nitrogen cycle, you aren't just starving the pretty plants.
No, you are starving the microscopic cyanobacteria, crashing the tank's waste management system, and visually muting the structural beauty of the fish themselves.
Which is exactly why this deep dive matters for you. Being well-informed means developing the ability to look past the surface of things. It's a reminder to look past what our eyes perceive, like that blinding, visible brightness of a hardware store light, to truly understand the invisible mechanics that make a system function.
Yeah, you have to know what the numbers on the box actually mean, whether it's an IP rating or a PAR value.
And you must respect the highly specific needs of the world you are trying to build.
It's really about respecting the complexity of the environments around us, right? Recognizing that a 25-gallon glass box of water operates under entirely different physical laws than your living room ceiling.
Definitely. And I want to leave you with a final thought today. We spent a significant amount of time unpacking PAR and exploring how microscopic organisms like cyanobacteria entirely depend on specific, invisible wavebands of light just to survive and process waste.
Right, the invisible foundation.
Exactly. If they are deprived of those invisible frequencies, their whole system crashes and the environment becomes toxic. It really makes you wonder if microscopic life in a fish tank is that incredibly sensitive to invisible wavelengths of light. What other invisible environmental factors in our own modern homes and office buildings are quietly shaping our health, our moods, and our personal ecosystems without us even realizing it?
Oh, wow. That is a question worth carrying with you.
Something for you to mull over the next time you flip a light switch and assume you understand what's filling the room. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.